Hey there, it's Marley and welcome back to my booktube channel. Today I'm going to be giving you 19 thriller book recommendations. So a couple of years ago, I made a top 20 favorite thriller books recommendation video. And right now, that is actually my most popular video on this channel. So I thought it was due time for me to do another one of these thriller book recommendation videos, talking about my favorite thrillers I've read since I made that last part 1. Unfortunately, I was not able to come up with 20 new recommendations, but I do have 19. Still pretty close. A couple of these do lend a little bit towards horror, but for the most part, they are thrillers. So let's get into the list. And I will have part 1 linked down below in case you haven't seen it. You can definitely go check that out for 20 more thriller book recommendations. The first one I want to talk about is Then She Was Gone by Jewell. I realized I didn't mention this in my last video, even though it was pretty much the book that got me back into reading thrillers back in like 2020 when I started reading more. This was the first Jewell book I ever read, and as you may or may not know, Jewell is one of my all-time favorite thriller authors. You will see her appear again on this list. I just think she is a must-read author if you're into thrillers, and this is the one that really got me hooked on her writing. Even though it has a pretty simple story, the writing, the characters, like, it just sucks you in. So in this book, we're following a woman who has lost her daughter. I know that her daughter was like kidnapped or killed or something years ago, and then she starts dating this man. She's trying to move on with her life, you know. She starts dating this new man, and he has a daughter. The daughter is really reminding her of her own daughter that disappeared years ago. And so we're trying to uncover what the heck is going on. Is there some sort of connection to her daughter's disappearance and her new beau? This is just such a quick read. As I was saying, I read it in like one day, I'm pretty sure. The next book I want to recommend is The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. As I was saying, this one is technically labeled as a horror, but it is kind of thrillery, and I think thriller readers would enjoy it. I gave this one 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. It is basically about a book club in the South, as you can imagine from the title. In particular, we're following this one woman. She is a housewife. I think this takes place in like the 80s or 90s when, you know, stay-at-home moms were more common. This woman and her friends have this book club, but they're not like the other moms in town. They don't really want to read the typical books that the other book clubs are doing. They read like darker stuff, murder mysteries, crime novels, stuff like that. And then the main character starts to suspect that this new man in town is a vampire. You know, no one's believing her. The men are all gaslighting her, but she convinces her book club that, you know, this man is a vampire. She needs their help to slay him. He's coming for all the children in the town. So super campy, super fun. I mean, it is horrific as well because it is a horror, so be warned about that. But it was very interesting to read, a very unique book to me. A lot of feminist tones. If you're into vampires, obviously it's a great one. Great to read around Halloween as well. So I wanted to shout out this one. Then of course I had to mention a Shari Lapena, another thriller author I've really enjoyed. I really enjoyed her book, Not a Happy Family. Granted, I think this was one of the first books I read by her. So I think especially if you've never read Shari Lapena before, I think whatever first book or first couple books from her you read, you're going to be really impressed by her style, because she just writes really easy to read, really consumable thriller books, domestic thrillers. So only if you are into like the neighborhood, domestic, following a bunch of families type of thrillers. But I literally read all of her books in one day. Even if I end up not really liking the plot in certain ones, her writing just always gets me. So in this particular book, we are following a certain family. There's multiple adult children and then the 2 parents, and they all get together for some family dinner. There's some fights that go on, and then the next day the parents are found, I think, like brutally murdered. And so it's your typical whodunit situation. Who killed these 2 parents? Obviously all of the children are the suspects because they just got in a fight with them, and all of them stand to inherit a lot of money from their parents as well. So it's that kind of story, but I was pretty impressed with it. I just had a really good time with it. I love how she structures her books from a lot of different points of view, and you get to be trying to figure out who is the one that's the killer based on all these different clues you're getting from the different perspectives. So have to recommend her overall as an author, and especially this one. All right, a bit of a newer release I want to recommend is One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware. Now, Ruth Ware is a pretty popular mystery thriller author. Not all of her books work for me, but I did enjoy this one. Obviously, that's why I'm mentioning it. So One Perfect Couple is about a couple. They're not so perfect. They are having a little bit of issues, financial issues. Our main character is, I think she's a scientist actually, and then she's dating a guy that is an actor or like a wannabe actor. And so his agent says he can get him a job on this reality TV show, but it's for couples. So he has to bring our main girl with him to film this reality TV show, and it takes place on an island. So it's a really fun setting of being on this kind of deserted island. They're being filmed for a reality show, and then everything takes a dark turn when this storm hits. All of the like camera crew and stuff like that disappear. It's basically our contestants that are left on this island trying to survive. It very much is a survival story, which is a little different from her other books. Then it seems like one of the people that they're stuck on this island with might have some murderous tendencies. So not only are they trying to survive from nature, but also potentially from a killer on the island. Really exciting, really fun. I, in particular, had a connection to this book because one of our main characters that's stranded is a type 1 diabetic, just like I am. So I also appreciated that representation, and it was actually done well in this book. Another book to recommend is The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona. This is another one that leans a little bit more horror, but I was trying to get the list up to, you know, around 20 books, as I was mentioning before. This one I really don't want to say a ton about. We just know we are following this man, and he's quite mysterious. It seems like maybe he's a serial killer or some sort of criminal. We are also seeing points of view from his cat, which makes the story quite unique. She was definitely a favorite character of mine to hear from in the story. And then also seems like we're hearing from another girl's point of view, maybe one of the victims of the killer. This story was told very, very interestingly. It can be sometimes very hard to follow, but if you're looking for twists, if that's why you are into thrillers and you're trying to figure out what is going on in this story and you're waiting for those plot twists and you're trying to figure things out, then I think this book would really work for you. Next up, I want to recommend No Exit by Taylor Adams. I've recommended this a ton on my channel recently because I absolutely loved this book. It was my favorite book of, was it 2023 or 2024? But anyways, this is another action-packed thriller. So we have our main character, and she ends up getting stranded as well during this blizzard. She gets stranded at this rest stop on the side of the highway. There's a bunch of other strangers that are stranded there as well. She's getting to know them, and then she goes outside to try and get like cell service or something, and she sees in one of the people's vehicles, like in their van, that they have a child captured in the back of their van, like in a cage, like someone has kidnapped a child. And so now this girl has to figure out like which of these people she's stranded with is literally a child kidnapper, potential murderer, and she has to try to save the child. She has to try to survive herself. So it's very much like a cat and mouse survival story. It was so intense. It was so good. It definitely could be like disturbing and scary and upsetting at times, but it is just like one of my top thriller recs. If you take one recommendation from this video, honestly, I want it to be No Exit. And then by the same author, he came out with this book a year or two after that, I think. We had The Last Word, and this honestly has a little bit of a similar vibe to No Exit. I think that's why I liked it so much. I gave both of these 5 stars. But in this one, we have a main character who is also pretty isolated. She's house sitting this house kind of, I think, away from everything. She just has this one neighbor who she does communicate with, but she, you know, is reading, having a nice time, and she ends up leaving a 1-star review for this book that she really hated. And then it seems like the author of that book is pissed. He writes her some like threatening messages, and then it seems like he is coming to try to kill her. So again, it's a story of our main character trying to survive, where this crazy author guy is like trying to get revenge on her for rating his book 1 star. Very interesting premise, very entertaining, kind of silly, but again, action-packed, has a few twists in there. A really good book. All right, next up is more of like a cozy mystery thriller, but it's just a favorite book of mine and a favorite series. I had to mention it. Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson. This is about a guy who is actually an author. He writes books about how to write murder mystery books, so he's very into the murder mystery genre. The book is very much like satire and making jokes about the murder mystery genre, so that's why I really recommend it for mystery and thriller fans. We're just learning about how everyone in his family has killed someone. Everyone's kind of suspicious. He goes to this family reunion and people start dying. Like, people in his family start dying. So obviously we have a lot of suspects there that it could be, but along with our main character Ernest Cunningham is the main character, and that's the name of the series, I believe. We're trying to figure out who the killer is and just unravel the mystery. And there is a sequel out as well, and also a little Christmas special, which I haven't read that one, but I really want to recommend this series. It's so funny, and the mystery and the twists are also really, really good and well thought out. All right, another little twisty thriller we have here is Murder in the Family by Cara Hunter. I actually ended up hearing some negative reviews about this book from other people, so I just want to do a little disclaimer for that, but I think I ended up rating it 4.5 stars because I just had such a fun time in the journey of reading this book. Is the main twist like the most surprising thing ever? No, but I think it's just such a fun reading experience for thriller and mystery fans because of like the format that this book does. It's multimedia, so we have a main character who's a director. He decides to do this like Netflix series trying to solve a murder that happened in his family when he was a kid that was never solved. And so he hires like a journalist, he hires maybe a lawyer, and then different people involved in like crime, like detectives and police, I can't remember now, but he has all of these people in the show doing commentary trying to solve this murder years later, this cold case. So as I said, it's multimedia, so we're seeing the scripts, we're seeing text messages, emails, I think we're seeing some photos and newspaper clippings. Yep, different things like that. So it just was a really fun time to try to put everything together yourself. There's a lot of craziness that you're trying to figure out, a lot of theories you can make. So I personally had a fun time with them. All right, I said she would come back on this list, and I wasn't lying. We have Lisa Jewell. None of this is true. I believe this is her most recent release, unless I'm getting behind, but I don't think so. Just such a great thriller again. I don't even know what to say about her books anymore. They're just so well done. Not just for the plot, but like the characters and like how she puts everything together, the emotion she adds to it as well. But in this book, we're following these two women who are birthday twins. They end up meeting at this restaurant where they find out that both of them, it's their birthday. And so they kind of connect through that. And then our main character, the one lady, hosts a podcast, and it's about people who have changed their life and had a really like inspirational life. And then our other girl is like, hey, can I be on your podcast? Like, I have a really crazy inspirational story. And so this girl's like, sure. A lot of the story is the one lady, you know, interviewing the other one for her podcast and learning her story and learning all of this trauma that she's gone through and how she's trying to better her life now. But I think we're also hearing from the other lady as well, and we're seeing kind of like the darker side to her life. Like, is what she's saying true or not? There's some good twists in here. I'm pretty sure I was surprised by the twist in this one. Gotta recommend it. I do think this one could be a little bit more of an underrated read. We have You're Invited by Amanda Jayatissa. This was quite an entertaining read. I really want you guys to look into it if it sounds interesting. It is a wedding thriller, as you can imagine from the title and the cover, but we have a main character. She is surprisingly invited to her ex-best friend's wedding. Okay, so they are estranged, haven't talked in years, but she gets invited to her wedding and then finds out it is her ex-boyfriend that this girl is marrying, and so she is pissed. She is mad. She decides to go to this wedding to get revenge. It's a bit of like, not an unreliable narrator, but you're like, is this girl, can we trust her? Oh yeah. And then the bride goes missing and is presumed, you know, potentially dead. And so it's like, was that our main character? Is she that pissed? And we're also trying to figure out like what happened all those years ago to make these two women no longer be friends. So we're just trying to, you know, learn about the drama and the history. And this also takes place in Sri Lanka. It's a Sri Lankan wedding, if that interests you as well. But I just love the drama of it all. And I thought it was really twisty. And I was honestly surprised how good it was just because I hadn't heard a ton about it. I think I got this book for like, was it $2 or something? I know I got it pretty cheap from a used bookstore, but yeah, check it out. And then, you know, I had to mention my thriller king, Riley Sager. The only one left. I think this is my favorite thriller book by him, which is crazy because there was totally mixed reviews about this book when it came out, and I don't get it. But this is for the people who want a really, really twisty thriller. If you don't want a lot of twists, if you don't want to have to think that hard, then okay, I'll admit maybe it's not for you, but I think it's for most of us. So in this book, we do have multiple timelines, but essentially this woman named Lenore, yeah, that's her name, right? Yeah, Lenore Hope. So back in 1929, her whole family was murdered in this house, and she was the only one left. Of course, because she was the only one left, like, everyone was kind of suspicious of her, but it could never be proven that like she killed her family. So she's just been living up there on her own, a pretty like lonely life. She just has like the help and stuff that also lives and works there. So now in present day, she is an old woman, pretty disabled, like not able to do too much. But our main character comes in, Kit. It is now 1983. She's had her own issues. She's had her own struggles, but she is like a healthcare worker, like a home care worker, whatever. She needs a new job, and so she takes the job of helping with Lenore because no one really wants a job helping this old lady who potentially is a killer. So Kit does it. While she's there, Lenore starts typing out her life story because, as I said, she can't really talk, but she can type with her one hand. So she's typing out like, I'm finally ready to share my story. Like, this is what it is. And so Kit is like reading the messages, and we're slowly finding out like the truth behind what happened all those years ago. And we are also learning about Kit's own issues because she also has stuff going on in present day. The way that everything just was so twisty, like everything led to something. Like every clue that was left, like it had a meaning. And the vibes were just so creepy in this old, you know, creepy house. Like, it was just so great. So yeah, I feel like I haven't talked about this book in a while, so I'm glad I get to pitch it again to you. All right, another thriller I want to recommend is Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. This is, I think it's considered a thriller. It's also kind of action-y, which is fun. So if you want something that's not just your typical domestic thriller like Shari Lapena, this could definitely be of interest to you. This is basically about two men who were both estranged from their sons. Their sons were actually together. They were a gay couple, and that's part of why these two fathers were not really close with their sons at the time. They're kind of homophobic, but both of their sons get murdered, and it kind of brings them together, and they kind of realize like, we want to get revenge for our sons. We want to figure out who did this. Both of these men, as I said, work together to try to figure that out. We have really good character growth for them. It's fun to see their relationship. These two very different men. It could be funny. It could be crazy and disturbing. It deals with a lot of different themes, and it ultimately was a really beautiful story. I feel like this could be like kind of a bro-y book. Like, our two main characters are these older men. As I said, there's action and all this stuff. So I want to especially recommend it for any guys that might be watching. Next up, another author you might recognize, we have Karen Salughter, False Witness. I'm not gonna lie, I feel like the details of this book haven't stuck with me as much, but I know I rated it 4 stars. I know I always really enjoy Karen Salughter's writing. It's very effective. It really has an impact on you because a lot of it can be very upsetting and disturbing. But in terms of the plot, I do know it also follows 2 sisters, which is a little bit of a theme with her. And one of the sisters is a successful lawyer who has, I think, tried to find success and kind of escape from whatever trauma she has in her past. Then she gets requested to represent this criminal, and we're kind of figuring out like, why is he requesting her specifically to represent him. And we're also seeing the point of view of her sister, who is a drug addict and really does not have her life on track, and we're exploring that story as well. I do remember it being quite heartbreaking. So this is more of like a hard-hitting thriller. If you like to read about sister relationships or the law and crime, I would recommend this one. Another 5-star thriller book I want to recommend, but it is a little bit controversial. We have Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. I love Alice Feeney. Unfortunately, I have not read her whole backlist yet, but I want to keep working on it because I have given her multiple 5 stars, including this one. So basically in this one, we have a main character. I need to start out my descriptions differently than that, but we have a main character, and she is getting together with her grandma and with some other relatives for, I think it's her grandma's birthday. It is a And Then We're None retelling. I believe that's how And Then We're None starts. I'm not sure. Haven't read that one. Her family members start dying. There's this kind of whodunit situation. Who's the killer in the room? And we're also getting flashbacks, I know, and seeing more of like the backstory backstory to all these characters, because we have like her family, and then we also have this guy who's like not technically related to them, but he's kind of like a family friend, and we're just figuring out the relationship dynamics between all of them. And this twist, Alice Feeney is known for having a lot of twists, at least in my opinion. The major twist in this book I did not guess. If you guessed it, I see why maybe you would not love it as much. For me, I didn't guess it, and so it was very effective for me, and I just had a really good time with it. I think I read it very, very quickly, so I do really want to recommend this one. Another thriller is Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hillier. This is the only book I've read by this author, but I really want to read more from her because I really liked this one. It's about a main character who's dating this man who definitely is a bit older than her. I think he's actually an actor. She comes home one day and he's been murdered. I think she like picks up the knife, or like for some reason she kind of ends up looking suspicious, even though it wasn't her as far as we know as the reader. So she kind of has to go on the run because she is kind of the prime suspect. Also, she has a dark and mysterious past. So now that her life's kind of being thrown into the limelight, into the press, things are not looking good. So we're seeing this kind of situation play out, and we're also getting flashbacks to see how did she get to this place? What is her dark and mysterious past? This was pretty crazy as well, pretty dramatic and upsetting, action-packed. But yeah, it was a good one. It also took place in Canada, I think. I think Jennifer Hillier is a Canadian author, so always enjoy reading some Canadian rep as well. Okay, we're almost at the end. We have The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead. This is a really dark book, actually, and it has to do with cults, so definitely be warned about that. But we have a main character, and she's listening to a podcast one day, and it mentions her friend from college who has recently passed away, and I think it even mentions her. And so anyways, she, is upset about her friend, and she wants to look into what happened to her. Why did she die? Did she get murdered? So she goes and joins up with the guy running the podcast, and they start investigating this together. And then we're learning about this very dark past that she had with her friends in college. As I said, has to deal with cults and a lot of abuse against women. That's like a major content warning for this book for sure. It's very dark, but it is very good and very effective as well. Ashley Winstead, I think, is a really talented writer with thriller and romance. Again, still have not caught up on all of her backlist, but I definitely need to because she is probably a favorite author of mine. Alice Feeney, I'm going to mention her again. Good Bad Girl. This was one I read a little bit more recently, and it was a pretty solid thriller once again. We're following multiple different women in this story. I know we have an older woman who's at like a senior's home. We have a young girl who's working at the home, like kind of a teenager age or like young 20s. We have some other more like middle-aged women. We're just trying to figure out like how are they all connected, because we know at the very beginning of the book we see that a woman goes to the grocery store with a newborn baby. She's very tired and worn out, and then the baby gets stolen from her, literally stolen out of its little carriage. So that is a crime that happens. And then I think there's also like a murder that happens at the senior's home that this one lady lives at. So we have these multiple crimes going on, and we're trying to figure out like how does it all connect, like who are all these women in the story. Alice Feeney plays with the identity stuff a lot, so we have that going on. But I ultimately ended up enjoying it. Alice Feeney's writing is really addictive for me, and like I said, I'm just always invested in like what the twists are going to be. And then the last book I want to recommend, we're going back to one that has a bit more of a horror slant because that's all I could come up with for the list. We Used to Live Here by Marcus Kluwer. This is a really popular book from the last year, so you may have heard of it. But in this book, we are following a couple who has recently moved into this house, but it's a house they're gonna try to flip and like work on a lot. So our main character is home alone because her partner is out. This family shows up. It's like a dad, mom, and a couple kids. And the dad is like, hey, I used to live here. I grew up here. I really want to show my family around the house. Obviously not an ideal situation, kind of uncomfy, but our main character is kind of a people pleaser, easily pushed around, and so she ends up letting them in. And then this family just like never really leaves. And a lot of other creepy things start happening. As I said, it is a horror, so it goes in some really crazy and creepy directions. So if you are into thrillers for like the creepiness of them, and again, also the mystery, because it gets very weird where you're like, what is going on? You're trying to solve what's happening based on all these really constantly weird situations and weird scenes that our main character is going through. I really enjoyed it. I didn't quite give it 5 stars like I hoped to. There were a few things that couldn't make it absolutely perfect for me, but I think I gave it 4.5. Like, I still really enjoyed it. So of course wanted to add it to this recommendation list. So those are my 19 thriller-ish book recommendations for you. Hopefully you enjoyed them. Let me know down below. Feel free to let me know any of your own thriller books that you would recommend to me. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more bookish content, including reading vlogs and other book recommendation videos like this. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye.